Now, Jarvis, we know that we were hoping for a continuation. I won't say a start, but hoping for a continuation of the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of the Falcons to just stay in the playoff hunt. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, that dream died Saturday with the Ravens
yeah,
win over the Falcons. But here's the thing, it was only what, 17-9? So we're
yeah,
not talking about some type of blowout situation. And really, Jarvis, other than one game this season, i.e., the Bengals, we really have not had a lot of conversation about blowouts with the Falcons. So
right.
the defense did their job respectably, again, only giving up 17 points. But that also says, Jarvis, that we have been having that same conversation all season. Because as much as the defense is bended but not broken, is as much as the Falcons have still taken L's.
Yeah.
So that all kind of boiled over post game Saturday when Grady Jarrett was asked the question about his thoughts on a team that's competing but is just not, no pun intended, getting home.
No, disappointed, man. You know what I'm saying? You try so hard, whatever, but same different year. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying. You gotta keep fighting, but everybody fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta win some games. We gotta finish strong as we can, but to be able to not, even to have a chance to be in the postseason and mess that up. You know what I'm saying? It's frustrating.
Frustrating indeed. And so,
Ooh,
it begs the question of, Grady is always the guy who is amazing, Jarvis, at being able to answer a question and show some emotion. And you
yeah,
can kind of see what he's thinking,
yeah,
but he is masterful at not ever saying it.
yeah.
We heard in the backside of the cut, I call it standard classic Grady Jarrett. But the
Mm,
front part of the response to those questions really showed the raw emotion of where he is after this point in yet another frustrating season. So my question is, you know, we're not in Grady's head, so we want to
yeah,
say that up front.
of course.
But if
Yeah.
we had to peek in his head, Jarvis, do you feel like maybe he's kind of second guessing himself and saying, dang, I was glad to stay home and glad to be in Dean P's defensive scheme for his second year, but man, listen, it's getting exhausting. I don't know if this was the right move or that was the right move at the beginning of this year to come back.
Wow. Yeah, that is a very good question. When you think about like the one of the reasons why he came back, right? Because
Yes.
he coming into the year, I was one that kind of stood at the top of the mountain saying like, I don't know if he's necessarily a fit in Dean Pease's system, right? We kind of saw a little bit of that last season,
Hmm.
but when you think about the type of guy that Grady is, like right, like he probably even heard, man, I ain't gonna say he sat up and listened to our podcast. He might listen to our podcast, I don't know,
Hmm.
but if he did hear it and say like, man, what the hell are you talking about, dude? I'm Grady freaking Jarrett, so I'm about to make sure that coach, I'm gonna get with coach. I'm gonna sit down with him, like, hey, how you guys are gonna use me? And I'm gonna have these
Hmm.
conversations before I
Yeah.
put my name on a dotted line. And I think that
Indeed.
Grady liked what he heard, and to the tune of, well, I think Grady's right now is five and a half sacks right there on the
Hmm.
season. So when you're talking about that type of production from an interior defensive line and not really having anybody by you that's going to attract some type of blockage, you know what
Exactly.
I'm saying? And the meaning that you're going to get double teamed, and sometimes you might get a squeeze a triple team in there from time to
Hmm.
time as well. So I think that from that standpoint, from production standpoint, from an individualistic standpoint, it was the right decision. But when you start thinking about the end results of games and the
Yeah.
coming down to the wire, like because we've talked about them being in games as a positive thing, like you just mentioned.
Hmm.
But as a player, being in it, being so close each and every
Every week.
Sunday, and then
Yeah.
coming up with L's, that crap is frustrating. And you
Hmm.
heard it. And he even said something towards even on the other side of the clip we just played was
Hmm.
that you can kind of tell like he was like, I don't know how everybody else feel, but I know how I
Right.
feel, and he kind of stopped himself
Yeah.
because you felt like he was gonna say something like, I don't even know if these mofo's give a damn. Like, essentially,
Right.
I'm a fill in the blank.
Hmm.
I'm a fill in the blank there. So when you have a veteran guy pointing out these things and having it and voicing his frustration like this, you should
Hmm.
be concerned.
Yeah.
Meaning head coach Arthur Smith, you should be
Hmm.
concerned.
Yeah.
Head defense coordinator Dean Pease, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that can really get into a player's head from time to
Hmm.
time and be like, hey man, get this man some help or just
Yes.
win some
Yeah.
damn games.
Yes. And I want to go with what you said to start that last comment, which is get him some help. I was having an
Yeah.
interesting conversation last night with, as I go through the trauma of, will I buy a new car? Won't I buy a new car? Or do I have
Right.
to?
Right.
One of the
Right.
conversations, because, once people know what we do for a living, they start talking sports.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to know kind of where the Falcons should go. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not a conversation. If it's me, every pick in the draft should be
Come
defense,
on.
defense, defense,
Come on.
defense, defense,
Like, what are
defense.
we talking about here?
Right. Now, why are we having this conversation? And I said, don't get me wrong. I know there might be a hole or two at O line, and you may have to draft an O lineman because, as we've seen, Jarvis, this last week has been a trend of O linemen getting re-upped by their teams, right? So there
Yes.
may not be those kind of top tier free agents out there for the O line. So you may have to try it one more time with the draft. However,
Right.
I really want you to just go D, 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 because I think you made the
That's what
point
she
clear,
said.
which is get this dude some help. We saw flashes with Taquan Graham. So I told the
Yeah.
gentleman last night, I don't want
That's
to
promise.
discount that.
Yes.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not his fault that he's injured, right?
Right.
So I don't want to say we should just give up on TQ. That was giving Grady the help that you and I had hoped he would get when we said at the beginning of the season. Because I remember when you and I said, who's going to be the defensive MVP? I raised my hand and said Grady, because
Right.
I truly believed that Dean was going to find a way to get him where he needed to be in his scheme, and then some of these players were going to step up. Now, that said, Jarvis, I'm going to slightly contradict myself. I think what you were saying about maybe where Grady's head could be is, bruh, you over there, you want to give me consistent help? Yeah, great that you might get it from Anderson, Abdullah, or Troy every now and again. You might get it from Ade. I'm gonna just go down the whole list, Jarvis.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might get it from Rashawn. You might get it from Lorenzo. You might get it from Richie, AJ. But other than maybe AJ, did I call any name that you and I have called every week for 16 weeks? And in AJ's case, the only time we really didn't call his name was when he was out
When
injured.
he was out injured.
That
Yes.
therein to me lies the problem. And I think Grady silently or quietly, kind of low key, made that point of, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
where's the effort, the consistency, Because the other question the guy asked me, and I'm interested to see what your thought was, for Grady to get that help, like, of these new players that were brought in to, quote unquote, give the defense help holistically, who would you absolutely bring back? And I was like, okay, well, Casey Edwards didn't really get a chance to kind of show all of what he was because he got injured before he kind of really got started. Or Hayward, I'm sorry, Casey Hayward
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
got started. But other than Rashawn Evans and a few of the young guns who we still need to kind of see what they can do, like AK, or when TQ gets back healthy.
Yeah.
Come on, man. So I can understand why Grady might just be frustrated and maybe looking around saying, send help and send it consistently.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that when Arthur Smith was kind of talking about just from playing young guys and all that stuff, he was kind of saying, he was like, hey guys, listen, like, we have Grady Jarrett and Jake Matthews on long-term deals. Everybody else on one-year deals and all that stuff. So
Yep.
when people start talking about the amazing amount of money and the Falcons are going to make it rain on free agency, you know what I'm saying? Like straight Magic City style. It's going down as soon as the March hits. No, that's not the case. They're going to have to pay enough people so they can fill the roster. You know what I'm saying? Because there are going to be so many people that are going to be free agents. That money's going to have to get divvied up. And then you're talking about people, offensive linemen reading up, right? Guess what? Chris Lindstrom is going to go into his last year of his contract in 2023. So you're going to let him go into the season as headed towards free agency?
Right.
No, wrong. That's the most consistent player you have on your offensive line. So you got to take care of him. So I think that when you think about all of those guys defensively, there'll be some guys that you may potentially bring back. Casey Hayward, he's still traveling with the team, so he's locked in and focused in on helping out wherever way he can. I wouldn't mind bringing him back. As much as crap that I've given Lorenzo Carter on this podcast, I wouldn't mind bringing him back. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially if we don't know where you're going to go in the first round. If you're not trying to get a Will Anderson or somebody or Jalen Carter, if he falls to you right there, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're going to go there. I mean, I know what they need. You mentioned what they need at the start of this segment. They need edge rushers. They need somebody who can put some pressure on the quarterback. Like, it's no secret. Like, we've been talking about this for for the past 5 years, the Falcons are one of
Yes.
the worst teams in sacking the
Yeah.
quarterback in the NFL consistently. Like they
Hmm.
were really bad last year, and they got really close to that this year. They improved, but still not that much. But so I get Grady Jarrett's frustration. I
Hmm.
understand it because there have been times where he's voiced that frustration, and you just seen that
Yeah.
frustration on his face, and
Yeah.
you get tired of answering the same damn question
You
each and
do.
every week. T
You
like this
really
is.
do.
Yeah, so I get it, I understand it. So, but for me though, I think that the overall theme here, as these last 2 games wind down, they need to see who can help this man out next year,
Yes.
and if they can't help them out, their ass don't need to be back next year.
Yeah. And
And
that's
then,
yeah. And as much as we're talking about send help to Grady and bring some pressure from the edge, boy oh boy, if you want to hear about a guy that brought it his entire career, check out Locked On Sports today because I am sure that they are going to have reaction to the breaking news that
yes,
future Hall of Famer JJ Watt is wrapping it up this season. So if you want to hear more about that story and just talk about his legacy, check out Locked On Sports today. They'll also have reaction to some of the biggest or coolest stories like the Chargers. The Chargers are the most recent team to wrap up a postseason berth, and they said, you know what? We're not done. All right, Locked On Sports today will tell you if they think that is the case. So just like you check us out on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you download your podcast, don't forget to check out Locked On Sports today because they'll definitely give you also their version of For the Culture called Take of the Day. Now, Jarvis, the one thing I will say is this. I think you make an excellent point now that we are indeed outside of the chances that the Falcons would have a postseason berth. You have 2 games left. 2 very winnable games, by the way.
yes,
So this is an opportunity to show us what you got, Falcons. This is an
right.
opportunity for Arthur Smith, Dave Ragone, and Dean Pease to see what is really happening and what opportunity there could be for some players to obviously or either be retained or if they want to say, you know what, we'll move on.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of valuations going on. So I think that a lot of people may be looking at the Troy Anderson situation like, okay,
Mhm.
Michael Walker might not be a guy
Yeah.
that might be around, but look at it from this standpoint. Troy Anderson is a guy that played inside linebacker.
Hmm.
The other guy, Rashawn Evans, who's had a solid year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess, think about it from this standpoint. If Terry Fontenot don't want to spend no money to bring Rashawn Evans back,
Hmm.
slide Michael Walker on the other side of the inside linebacker spot because when he was in there, I
Hmm.
ain't have any issues. Now, of course, he can get better,
Yeah.
but I think there was some good things that we saw from Michael Walker early on in the year where he was
Hmm.
looking at he was going to be like the lead, he was lucky he's going to be the leading tackle for this team.
Yeah.
So there are some good things there. I think some things there to build off of. A lot of people have been satisfied with Troy. I say a lot of people, not necessarily me. I
Hmm.
see some things that he needs to really, really work on if he wants to be the guy that they drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. So,
Hmm.
so there are some things there that I feel he needs to work on. So there's going to be a lot, like you said, it's going to be a lot of evaluation as this season winds down, and I think that as it winds down, the
Hmm.
Falcons need to really know where they're going in the early part of this draft because this is like when you have your number 97 out here voicing and putting his frustration on display as he's talking about those particular things,
Hmm.
you need to start to listen because we don't want this situation to end ugly like Matt Ryan's situation ended. Just saying.
Just as we were talking about the Chargers making a postseason berth and the Colts, not so much. Anyway,
Ooh,
moving right
come
along.
on. Yes.